Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
Welcome, my darlings. Please sit down and enjoy. But leave the comfy chair for Ermine Case and the love seat for Darren and Jennifer Da, my Patreon supporters. Welcome. On this Valentine's Day, my darlings, I bring you a romantic, tragic story. And the horror within this one can be quite real. A New Life in Glasgow by ThisLakeIsGreat. He loves holding my hand. He holds my hand all the time. When we make love, when we walk, when we watch TV, when I sleep. I don't know when he sleeps. Every time I open my eyes and slowly wake, he's smiling at me and holding my hand. It makes me whole and strong again. I met James when moving to Glasgow a year ago and was looking for a flat. I wanted calmness, serenity, and as I was just recovering from a deep depression. This was also the reason why I left my country, France, to start a new life. To become independent and learn how to take care of myself, to be an adult. I'd found an ad, a mute man looking for a new flatmate. It was James. The first time he opened the door, I instantly trusted this tall and skinny guy with sparkling eyes and a huge smile. The flat was so nice and full of plants. He didn't hear or talk at all, but he could read my lips, and we started with writing on a paper or a small school board he had, or miming. As soon as I started falling in love with him, after 4 months of living together, I started learning sign language. James was kind. He was attentive. He was so beautiful, he stole my breath. He was a perfect lover also, and for hours he would please me. Give me all his love. He would always, always hold my hand and look and smile at me. He was passionate with art, photography, painting, writing. He was creating a lot and always inspired me, taught me new things. He did art all day long while I was at work. The walls of the flat were covered in his beautiful drawings, his beautiful poems, many of which were written for me. And I never knew how he actually paid the rent. He vaguely mentioned his parents with his hands. His disability made it hard for him to find a job, I thought. He was collecting my rent to give it all to the landlord. He was taking care of the administration, the cleaning, and cooking most of the time since I was working 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. I couldn't believe how happy and whole I finally was in my life. After all these dark years behind me, I used to tell my coworkers about my happiness. And then one day, one of them, Aline, asked me, "Are you sure you're okay, Lisa? I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's like you're not really taking care of yourself. You always seem to wear the same clothes. Okay, I'm sorry, it's not my place to tell you that. Well, anyway, would be nice to finally meet James someday, right? He never came to have a drink with us." I was really surprised about what Aline told me. I looked at my clothes. Yeah, all right, they weren't the freshest. Also, strangely, I never noticed that nobody had ever met James. Something awoke in me like a tiny splinter of unease. Maybe I thought it made sense. James and I had thought that it would be too hard for him to communicate with my friends because he couldn't hear or talk, and that he would feel shy about it. I came home that night and noticed the lights seemed to be a bit darker. The flat a tiny less tidy, with some clothes on the ground, which was very odd for James not to take care of. A drawing was hanging on the wall by one of the corners, just about to fall like a dead leaf. It was a portrait he had made of me. James was standing in the kitchen cooking dinner, only his smile was a tiny bit less sincere. The food wasn't smelling as good as usual. I kissed him and his lips were a bit colder. I hugged him to try and put some sense into my head. People, especially co-workers, they should take care of their own business, only instead of injecting self-doubt and negativity into people's lives. I asked James if he'd like to join me to have a drink with Aline and the others the next day. He read on my lips as usual, and his smile became huge, and in sign language he said, "Yes, I'd love to. Oh, I was waiting for you to ask, and I didn't want to pressure you. I'm really happy you asked me, my love." I was assured and so happy again. We hugged like crazy kids. I kissed his whole angel face. All had been my fault for not inviting him before, and I was so sorry. Our love, his happiness, the candlelights like stars, and the scent of his delicious meal were overwhelming. After the feast, I made love to him with all my passion, to ask for his forgiveness not to have included him in my outside life better, to wash away the creepy doubts I'd felt that day, to feel whole again. I fell asleep in his arms, my hand into his eyes on me. As usual, I'd wake up to find him looking and smiling at me still. Oh, James was always here for me. The next day, I was merry at work and enjoyed the night out with everyone. I came home singing, opened the door, and felt the shadows were a bit darker perhaps in there. But maybe that was just contrasting with the fun night with Aline and the others. In the kitchen, James was smiling at me, serving me his best pasta ever. We ate together happily, and suddenly I froze. "James!" He was staring at my lips. "Oh, God, James, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot to send you the address of the pub tonight. Oh, God, I swear. I'm so sorry. I was so used to going there on my own, and it had been a long day. Oh, no. I'm so sorry." I hid my face in my hands, devoured with guilt. I didn't sense any response from James. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself alone in the dark. Only the dim moonlight was allowing me to perceive the empty kitchen around me. Dirty plates were glowing in the shadows. A buzzing sound started growing around me. "James! James!" My voice seemed strangled with dread. A hand grabbed my shoulder and I jumped on my chair. I turned around. James was facing me, holding a shiny porcelain plate with a homemade pie slice on it. All the lights were on again, and a smooth jazz music was playing, his favorite song, "Baby, It's Cold Outside." He winked at me, his smile huge and gorgeous. But things started to deteriorate that day. I thought it was the guilt because of that failed night out with James and the others. I tried to organize other nights out, but somehow always ended up being too tired to go. I even forgot to call him another 2 times when I actually went out for a drink with coworkers. It's like a part of me didn't want my friends to meet him. How wrong was that? James always insisted that he didn't care, that I was enough for him, that he didn't like going out anyway. But the seed of uneasiness was planted, the seed of an even darker doubt, in fact. This light quality in the flat was slowly dropping. I asked James once or twice to contact the landlord about it, as it must be some issue with the electricity. He always smiled and nodded. Things were getting messier little by little. I didn't want to show James that it was irritating me, After all, there was no reason he should tidy more, even though I was working all day. My growing feeling of guilt was not helping me to think clearly. James was slowly stopping to communicate. Instead, he was still kindly smiling at me, staring at me, at my lips to wait for my words. But words didn't come out so much from my lips no more, as I was losing any idea of what to say. James was also stopping to create. He was not painting, not writing poems no more, but he was still holding my hand strongly, to replace the words in sign language, to show me he was here, to show me we were still one. I was still whole, as if all his remaining existing energy was not to let me feel alone. But somehow, no matter how tight he was holding my hand, I was feeling his less and less. I started missing work. I was not staying home either. In fact, I was going to a small cafes to observe people, like a ghost, and wonder about my life. I could sense the glances. I was also staying out to escape this uncomfortable feeling that had grown in what didn't feel so much like home no more, to escape that buzzing sound growing in there. One day at work, Aline invited me for a tea before going home. We went to Chai Ovna, this hippie cafe near Kelvin Bridge. It was a lovely night. She made me laugh a lot, talking about her childhood and her passion for ice skating. I told her about my dreams to be an adventurer and the most independent, responsible, badass version of myself. I felt something aching inside, but Aline smiled listening to me and told me she knew I could make it. At the end, after our laughs and sighs and finishing all the tea, she looked at me and became more serious. "Lisa, let me take you home tonight. Just want to make sure everything's okay. Would it be fine with you?" I felt my smile fading. I couldn't hold her eyes. I stared at my hands and the wooden pattern on the table and nodded in an automatic mode. I lived a 10-minute walk from there, in the west end of Glasgow. Well, that's what I thought. I led her through the dark lands and I could hear her getting worried. "Lisa, are you sure it's here? It's not the West End anymore, you know." I could see we were not in the hipstery West End no more. Indeed, that we had been walking for 25 minutes now, but what the hell? That was the way to my flat, I knew. We got there. The tenant flats facing us were sort of decayed, and we could see disheveled woman at her window smoking a cigarette, while her man behind her was screaming in a heavy, drunk Glaswegian accent. She looked at me, nodded to say hi. "It's in there," I said, "the 4th floor." We took the stairs. They were in a frankly bad state. Toys, cigarettes, and IRN Bruins cans that had been thrown in the corners of the staircase. 1st floor, a baby was laughing behind the left door. We could hear the man yelling still. 2nd floor was silent, and we saw warm lights through the glass doors. 3rd floor, soft jazz music was heard. An old man coughed. 4th floor, pitch darkness behind both flat doors. Mine was the left one. The glass of the door was half broken. "Lisa!" I didn't respond to Aline. I put my hand in my pocket to grab my key, but found none. I pushed the door, which simply opened. We entered the flat. A musty humidity smell took away our breaths. I tried to turn on the lights, but they'd been out of use long ago. Aline looked at me. "Don't cry," she said, and I realized tears were running down my face. I don't know how she was so brave and kind to me, but she simply turned on the flashlight on her phone and took my hand. We walked further into the flat. It was all broken in here. and empty for the most part, except in the room where, on an old mattress, there was a huge pile of my clothes that I was actually using as blankets at night to protect myself from the biting cold through the broken window. The floor was covered in clothes, too, and all my belongings. The living room was full of dirty dishes, and the buzzing of dozens of flies grew louder when we got in. The sofa on which I used to snuggle with James to watch movies on our huge screen was facing a bare wall. There was no screen. Never had been. The bathroom was covered in towels and had never been cleaned for a year, just as the rest of the flat. The kitchen was the worst. The buzzing of the flies was intense there, as they colonized all the rotten food and dirty plates laying around. And everywhere in the flat, in every single room, the beautiful art of James was gone. Like an automaton, I led Aline to the corridor again, where I removed one plank from the wooden floor. There was all the money for the rent that had never been paid, of course, for this was an abandoned flat. Aline was adorable to me and offered me accommodation for a few weeks, helped me go to the doctor, contacted my parents who came to take me home. I'm now back in France as I write this story to you. I'm taking religiously the treatments the doctor has set for me. I got better, I think, even though I used to think I was better when coming to Glasgow. Self-analysis can be deceitful, but hey, I feel good. My parents are taking care of me. They cook for me. They do everything for me. I'm like a queen. I don't have to do anything. I always wanted to be more self-sufficient, but hey, I'm sick now, so I deserve this. They tell me nice things all the time. They play the soft jazz music CDs I like. They light candles for me because they know I like them so much. They will help me find another job and another flat when the time comes, when I'm well enough to start a new life. I have hope, and they're not the only ones supporting me. I swear I can sense his smile at night, his hand strongly holding mine. And in these moments, it makes me whole and strong again. So quoth this raven. Happy Valentine's Day, my darlings. If you like this, please hit the little button to let me know. If you didn't, hit the little button to let me know. Leave a comment. I'm always glad to talk with you, my darlings. I'm open to suggestions and criticisms, critiques. If you have not subscribed, please do so and ring the little bell so you know when to come up and see me. And I will talk to you next time, my darlings. Farewell.